Do I have my friends? I see Rebecca. Has Jamie made it to us yet? I believe in you, Jamie, wherever you are. Oh, hold on. Let's see. How are we doing? Okay, well, I'm not gonna. There we go. Jamie, Rebecca, and I are all here. Thanks everyone for joining the Residential Experience breakout session. I believe we have a few things that maybe Jamie and Rebecca are going to cover in terms of living learning programs and sort of the Hokie Helper experience. And then after that, we will be happy to open it up for questions that you have. But I'm going to turn it over to them first, and then I will happily mute myself.
I'm trying to find, oh, there's Rebecca. Rebecca, rock, paper, scissors. Do you have a preference?
Already talking, it's your turn.
I'm happy to talk about RWB, and then we'll kind of talk about kind of LLPs and how that kind of layers on it. So for folks who might have joined the call who are newer to Virginia Tech or haven't learned much about the residential experience, something that is different here that I would love to tell you about is how we support kind of all 10,500 residents through the residential well-being model. And so it's a model that's not like any other in the country. It is a model that is really focused around support and community in a different way. And so often talk about it kind of in two lines. And one is really kind of the intensive personal support that we can offer students, particularly when they're going through hard times. Our 10,500 beds are divided into 5 districts, and each district has 1 or 2 case managers. They're non-clinical support folks who will really step in and support students who are having concerns, complex concerns, especially mental health concerns. And so they will knock on a door, they will send out an email, they'll sit down, just follow students. Sometimes it's a 1 meeting, sometimes we follow students for multiple years at a time, making sure that they have right resources, making sure that they're growing in the directions that they need to grow in, that they know that they've got a resource. And our case managers work hand in hand with cooks, RWB, and bed counselors. And so we've known that residential students can have unique mental health concerns, and like us, they're extremely busy. And so Cook, in addition to all of kind of their regular kind of 8 to 5 kind of brick and mortar offerings, have a set of counselors who work exclusively on the residential campus or at times that fit for our students. And so they actually work from 2 in the afternoon to 11 in the evening, Monday through Thursday, during the afternoons on Friday. And so gives residential students a great opportunity to resource someone very close to where they live. And for our team members, an amazing opportunity, especially in the evenings and late afternoons, when a student might say to their student leader, hey, I've had a hard day, something difficult has happened, I've had a setback that I didn't expect during the day-to-day, and I'm really struggling, that our team can walk them over to meet with an embedded counselor for a walk-in appointment, and often kind of triage and immediately address a situation that might have percolated overnight or gotten a little worse or just needed a quick triage rather than a traditional, counseling style appointment. And so those two resources work hand in hand to address our student populations in really unique ways that have been huge for us, including really reducing the amount of crisis work that we're doing, that our partners in the police department are doing, and even kind of levels of hospitalizations. And so that's a really important part of RWB. Not a lot of what we see on day one, but if students, families are asking you about, what you might see just a little bit more is really our unique focus of our programmatic efforts. And so you heard me mention in the large group that our 3 focus areas are holistic well-being, meaningful involvement, which we call experience VT, and belonging as kind of a broader concept, belonging and community well-being. So most districts have 1 professional of each of those types. So in essence, a health educator, an involvement specialist, and a belonging specialist who supervise those student leaders that I mentioned and work hand in hand to really kind of assess what their unique collection of buildings need and how to respond to that. And so a traditional freshman has that, any freshman who lives on campus has the opportunity opportunity to, or anyone who does live on campus at all, has the opportunity to interact with any of those professional staff members, and we'll assign cases to those staff members when we realize, this thing happened overnight, and it feels like it's really about the student has some learning to do about how to take care of themselves. Or this student may be looking for involvement in non-helpful ways. How can we get them involved in some really productive ways, or just do some matching? As I mentioned earlier, that live-in student leader role, we have 260 of them amongst all of our communities, are really important. And so our students do live contiguously with their student leaders, but instead of a traditional kind of one RA next to the 40 students who live next to them, we group them in a little bit of a larger group. And so students generally live together with 3 student leaders amongst them, one of each of those specialty areas. They're providing a steady flow of programming to get at all those 3 kind of functional areas. And they really give any student really kind of 3 bites of the apple of making a connection to at least one of those assigned upperclassmen who are there to answer their questions, provide them support, and help them make their way around this really amazing, well-resourced, and large institution that they just joined. And so residential well-being is something that kind of applies to all 10,500, and often those students are living also within our living learning program model. So Jamie, if you want to talk a little bit about that, maybe that would be a good next place to go.
Hey, thanks, Rebecca. Really starting out, students apply to an LLP after they've actually accepted and deposited to Virginia Tech. So they've already, now we also know that students are making multiple deposits to other universities at the same time. But our data does tell us that students who apply to at least one LLP they melt at a much lower rate than students that don't indicate any interest at all. And so we typically average more than 4,000 applications annually to our programs. And so that could be anywhere from just a student applying to one program to a student who applies to 3 different programs. But they can only participate in one. And yes, their roommate has to live with them and be a member of that community as well. And we answer those questions every year with a smile on our face. And so living learning programs, I encourage folks to think about them as that what we're trying to do is to create conditions for student success, student belonging. So Rebecca's team, they provide a fantastic foundation when we think about students that being successful at Virginia Tech, being well. And so what we're trying to do is help them to really customize their Virginia Tech experience. And so we do that through weekly programming. Some LLPs have a required course that students are enrolled in. And then we look at how we help them interact with faculty, staff, as well as peers that are in the community. LLPs are led by a program director or coordinator. And so that person, sometimes they might teach the class that's associated with an LLP, but not always. But one of their goals is really to help actualize the goals of that experience. So for instance, if a student wants to be an Innovate, which is our entrepreneurial living learning community, that program director is really charged with how do they help connect what students are learning in the classroom about entrepreneurship to their out-of-class experience in the residence hall. And so that might be inviting in local entrepreneurs. It might be connecting alumni from Virginia Tech to students that are in the program for them to learn about sort of real life entrepreneurs that were also former students here at Virginia Tech. Those program directors often have an upper division cadre of students that are part of that experience. So those upper division students, they might serve as sort of formal mentors in the community where they will meet individually with first year students that are in the community. There's also a lot of informal mentorship that those students are doing. So that just is sort of happenstance where a student might stop them and say, hey, who did you take for X class? Or where do I go to find out fill in the blank. And so those upper division students also may serve in a formal leadership role. And so in Meraki, for example, there are different committees that help to create the experience in Meraki, and those returning students serve in leadership capacities in those committees and are putting on different events and programming for students. Something unique at Virginia Tech that sets us apart from pretty much everyone but UVA, we just do it better than UVA, is our residential colleges. And so residential colleges are led by, I mentioned earlier in the large session, they're led by a live-in faculty member who actually lives in the residence hall. And we charge them with sort of setting the overall intellectual vision for the residential college. And that's really probably a fancy way of just saying that when we think about that community, what is it that we want for students to learn and have experienced? And then we align our programming and efforts with that. A key team member that those faculty principals have, and that's what we call them, are our program coordinators from the Office of Living Learning Programs. So these are staff members from my office that actually live in the residence hall and work alongside the faculty principal to help actualize the faculty principal's vision in there. Our office, so the Office of Living Learning Programs, we provide sort of overall guidance in regards to best practice within living learning programs. So there are some things where we might say, hey, we would like all living learning programs to do X, Y, Z. And that's really based on our knowledge of best practice in the country. We also provide some infrastructure area in regards to helping folks to be successful in that role, onboarding and training of new program directors. Often I like to think of us as sort of the tendon, so that we're connecting the muscle, the living learning program, to the bone when we think about the infrastructure of Virginia Tech. So whether that is helping connect our program directors, program coordinators to Rebecca's team in residential well-being, or maybe it's with housing services for Nikki, or facilities operations, Ken Belcher's area. And so as you saw the residential experience, the four of us, so Ken, Nikki, Rebecca, and me, we work very closely together in regards to the overall residential experience. And then I'll close out just by letting you know a few new things as far as we have a new living learning community that is launching this year in CID, and that is Convergence. That is a partnership with the Academy for Transdisciplinary Studies from the College of Liberal Arts and Human Sciences. And then, as many of you likely know, that we have several programs that closed just two days ago, I guess that would be at the end of the semester, which is Ujima, which was in Pedro Yates, Lavender House, which was in the Leadership and Social Change Res College in O'Shaughnessy, and then Orion, which was out of the College of Science in New Residence Hall East. We do have a couple of programs that are moving locations, and that's Securitas and Impact, both out of the Pamplin College of Business. They're going to be moving over into Pedro Yates. And so those are all sort of our most recent updates. I'm going to stop and allow for either Nikki to chime in with her wisdom. Nikki always has wisdom, or we're also good to just take questions.
Wisdom, snark, whatever floats your boat. So the only thing I'm really going to chime in with is the students will hear most frequently this summer from housing at vt.edu. That's how we communicate outward. Do want to remind folks that we communicate with the students. They are our contract holder, so they are the person who are our priority. We certainly talk to a lot of families, but that's a FERPA thing. They need to give us what the FERPA passcode before we're going to provide any specific information. And we're really going to encourage students to make sure they're checking their Virginia Tech email very often. That's where we communicate. And then in terms of communicate out to families, we do really participate heavily in the Hokie Family Hub. So when we send information out to students to their Virginia Tech email, our communications folks will take a version of that and put that on Hokie Family Hub. So if you've got a parent who's wondering how they can get information, please ask them, are you on the Hokie Family Hub? If not, please get on that. The last thing I'm going to say before we talk about questions is a little bit of what I talked about in the presentation. We get a lot of folks, and especially as I was reading I want to know how to tell people, who do they talk to? What do they do? What's expected of them? when it comes to sort of the residential experience in general, we, as big as 10,500 is, there are a lot of specialty populations and little on ramps and off ramps to different things. And so my plea, my best practice is know what your limitations are. It is perfectly okay and, in fact, encouraged to please connect folks with our offices directly about the particular things that we do. My answer to when can you move in is going to vary whether you're a new cadet, a new first year, if you're participating in a living learning program or not, if you are a member of Oak Lane, if you are a returning cadet, the Corps has said this is the date you can come back. If you're a student leader, if you are, so all these things are very specialized. And so what we sometimes find is students will talk to an advisor or someone else who with the best of intentions and in the best of faith says, well, this is what I think it is. And that student takes it and runs with it. And it's not actually what it is. And so then we're trying to backtrack that information. And so don't feel like you're doing a disservice to the student if you just connect them to us. We're more than happy to make sure they get the right information. And with that, I am going to stop talking and open it up to questions. We've got a couple minutes before we're going to be told to shut it down.
Nikki, if someone needed a housing accommodation, what would your advice be to them?
I did tell them to go find you personally. No, I'm kidding. So students who are asking for any kind of disability accommodation should not send me any kind of documentation. I don't want it. I'm not good with it. I don't know what it should be. So we're going to connect folks to our lovely colleagues in Services for Students with Disabilities to conduct an interactive process by which they will take that documentation, meet with the students, really get to understand the student's situation and barriers. And if there's an accommodation that needs to be made, recommend that to us. We will then take it from there to work with the student on implementation. But I don't want anybody's IEP. I don't want anybody's letter from their psychiatrist. We will delete them, to be totally honest. We will remove them from our records. We don't even retain them. And then we will redirect them back to our lovely colleagues in SSD. Okay. Well, it is about that time. If you feel so called, see yourself out. Otherwise, we're here for another 60 seconds. Micah.